So I'm honestly a full-time student turned full-time bodybuilder now, and I am now competing in the bikini category, and I'm really hoping to turn pro soon. I'm 21 at the moment, turning 22 soon, so I'm hoping to be, one of the top athletes at such a young age and really build a name for myself. And I'm originally from Hong Kong, so yeah, I really want to be like one of the top athletes that's made in Hong Kong. From a young age, like I started learning a lot about nutrition, and it's funny because I honestly dabbled into veganism at first. Like I was really looking into that, and then I was it kind of got into like a really troubled relationship with food, and I think that's what happens with a lot of people and athletes. A lot of them start off with like a really toxic relationship with food, and that's kind of how I started at first. Like it was back then when it was like Victoria's Secret was such a big thing, and I was just like, I really want to look like that. I want to be different. Like I want to have the abs and like look like them. So that's kind of how I started. And then I started going to like CrossFit classes. A lot of that kind of functional training. And then eventually I'm like, you know what? Like, I feel like I like to look like a CrossFit athlete. I like to have, you know, a lot more muscle on me because I know that it would help me with keeping that lean body without having to be like restricting and, eating absolutely nothing all day. Um, so yeah, it kind of started with like body dysmorphia, honestly. And then it was like a lot of just playing around with different foods. And I was just eventually, obviously, I'm not vegan anymore, obviously. That was kind of just like a 3 month thing. And I eventually realized, there are so many different ways about it, and I don't have to stick to that in order to achieve what I like to look like. And just growing up, I always wanted to be different. So that's like that's honestly how I got into um training really hardcore when I was doing CrossFit. And then eventually moving on, I was really enjoying the bodybuilding part of that. So I just started going to a bodybuilding gym, and that's kind of how it started. Everyone was competing there. Um, just the whole vibe was what I wanted. And also just aesthetic wise, it was always what I wanted to achieve. And I thought it really fits my body. So I was like, let's go. So I hired a coach. Um, that's how it started.
So early on, you mentioned kind of the CrossFit classes. Were classes things that you really leaned on to kind of, give you structure and kind of teach you the ins and outs of stuff?
It really was. And honestly, for me at the time, it was just my way of being like, I need to go to these classes so that I can stay active and I will not fall off track and I can eat and I don't have to starve myself, and that's going to burn as many calories as possible. So that's my thought at the time. I was going to these classes because, it would burn my entire expenditure throughout the day. Um, and then eventually later on, I learned so many things from those classes that I just used on my own training. So I mean, that's how it started. Um, and obviously, like a lot of people start with like personal training, and not everyone can afford to do that, especially like at such a young age. So I'm honestly really thankful that I participated in those classes. It was like ClassPass and like all these different types of platforms that really provided that. And yeah, it was pretty much self-taught throughout the whole CrossFit journey.
Was it a mixture of men and women in those classes?
Yes, from the girls' perspective, a lot of the times it's like, oh, I need to eat cleaner,
Mhm.
or oh, I need to start tracking my food so that I can make sure I cut or get really shredded. Or even like nowadays, like girls want to, it's very common for girls to want to build legs or glutes, but they're still way more uptight, I feel like, when it comes to their diet than men, because I think it's just the way the body works too. Um, but yeah, when I was going to classes, I think for it was a good thing that both men and women were in the same class because um a lot of these places, it's kind of like I don't know, like garage CrossFit type places, and then also like Barry's type of like training style. So honestly, there's like quite a good mix of people. You would see like a couple of girls that obviously look like they train a lot and they're like very hybrid athletes. And then there's also like your regular um corporate person that really loves to be healthy. So like going to these classes, it wasn't like very it wasn't like intimidating for me or anything. It was just more like motivational. It's just I see that these people are able to handle um their day-to-day job and all of that, go to work like 5 a.m. in the morning and still be able to show up and train. Which honestly really helped me because throughout my entire time in college, like I never stopped training or it never was like, oh, I have a week of finals and I'm not going to train anymore. Um, so that really helped me because I really wanted to be able to handle both things. And even like a lot of my friends in school, like they would take time off training, which is understanding, but for me, I would never want to give up one or the other. So that's just me. Yeah.
Are you a personal trainer, online fitness coach, or gym owner on the verge of burnout? Are you wanting to grow your fitness business but can't add more hours to your hectic schedule? Introducing Trainer Revenue Multiplier, the premier wealth creation system for fitness professionals that helps you earn more and work less. Visit www.trainerrevenuemultiplier.com today to schedule your free business accelerator session. If you're serious about taking your business to the next level, schedule your call today. Transitioning into bodybuilding, how did you manage to like take what you had learned in CrossFit and then maybe in some other like areas of training as well that maybe you'd seen around and take that and put that into bodybuilding, but do it in a way that like obviously you're still doing it like in a bodybuilding style, but do you feel like you took anything from your past training experience that you really excelled at and like you really, your body responded to well and then kind of put that into bodybuilding style training?
Yeah, I think so. Something that's really beneficial is cardio, obviously, because um, cardio is a big part when it comes to like show prepping and stuff like that. And back then, when I was doing all these CrossFit classes, we would do like box jumps, all sorts of things like assault bikes, that kind of thing. So I think it really trained my body to be like very responsive to that because I would stay lean for the most of the time. And even when I was, getting into bodybuilding and I was starting to change up my programming and really focus on like actually building the bikini competitor physique. Um, I think I still kept my cardio in because I know that down the line, like a lot of people like to incorporate like improvement seasons and they kind of just like ignore cardio or they would do like small little walks and they don't really like it's not like they get really fluffy or anything. It's just like they kind of just forget about this part of staying lean and just put on lean muscle tissue instead of just like gaining all this weight. Um, So I think that's really beneficial because especially for like bikini, like it's not an insane amount of muscle. So there's really no need to be like putting on all this weight. And then later down the line, you don't really know if that's like muscle or fat because you can't really see it properly. So I think that's really beneficial to just like for me to keep on incorporating these cardio sessions and it's like pretty consistent as well. Like it doesn't matter what phase I'm in. I always keep them in and like obviously the intensity would change like let's say right now I'm prepping for a show, then obviously I'll go more intense, but I always try to keep it in because I know that for me it would be more beneficial like both mentally and also physically for my body to handle when I do have to cut down. um I won't just be like once I get super, super lean, I won't be like, oh, like I look the same as a year ago before I put on all this weight. So it's it's really just the cardio aspect really helps. And then also just intensity wise, I feel like that really helps with my training. Just keeping and making sure like sometimes I superset things and I just try to make sure my intensity is up. Because obviously like bodybuilding style training is more so like for hypertrophy and depending on what your goals are, like it's a lot about volume, but at the same time you can't just be doing the movements and going super slow, like that's beneficial too. Um, but to a certain extent you also need to incorporate that intensity so that you're doing some sort of compound, actually training with intention and not just doing junk volume. Um, so that's my take on that. And then at that point, you're just actually just doing the motions. Maybe if you actually focused on the earlier part of your workout and actually like made it intense and intentional, then you might not even need whatever you have left at that point. So
Is there anything particular that you do to stay like really focused in on that idea that like I can't just go in today and do things. I have to really go in with a purpose.
I think obviously I still have days where I'm like, oh, I'm dragging this workout. Really don't want to do this. But I think like to me, I try to make social media as work for me as much as possible. So I make sure like whoever I follow, like I see their workouts and I'm not like obviously I won't just copy their workout, but I'll make sure I see them like working really hard and I actually um like I they motivate me to actually train as hard as they do. Um so like first of all that and just for me it's just like cleaning your social media and making sure like whoever you're constantly checking up on, they're helping you reach your goals and actually show up at the gym and actually execute like good good work that's gonna reach your goals, whatever that may be. Um, and then also like a lot of like nowadays a lot of podcasts and YouTube videos, they really talk about trying to train with intention and there's like different channels that promote that. So for me it's just trying to encourage that for myself and then also on days where I really feel very very fatigued, I would take the day off and I would just do my cardio and that's about it. I'll get in some steps. I live in New York City, so that's a good way to just get in my steps and stay active. But on those days, there's no need to be like, I have to do this workout. Especially if the last 3 days you were training really hard, it's okay to take that rest day and just be like, okay, today I'm going to just sit down and read or do whatever you have to do. But I think that's also super important, just actually resting properly because in the past I have tried like training 6, 7 days a week and I don't think I saw as many progress as I did nowadays because maybe half of those workouts were just not actually proper training. And that's like in the past when I was just like, I have to work out so that I can eat as much as I can and stay lean. That was in the past. And that was how I thought, like I have to move. But nowadays I'm like, I just need to make sure that my training is intentional, that um, I actually gain good quality muscle tissue that I can sit down on one rest day and nothing will happen to my body if I don't train for a day. Um, it's like it's not a lot of calories that you're burning or whatever. Um, if you put on actually quality tissue, then you're already doing all of that magic yourself. Like you're already building a really good metabolism. You don't need to be worried about missing one training. So yeah, rest is like the key to actually making sure your intensity is right for me. Yeah.
Are you a personal trainer who wants to scale and grow your business online? Have you been coaching online for years, yet don't know how to incorporate online into your current business model? Introducing Trainer Revenue Multiplier, the premier wealth creation system for fitness professionals that helps you earn more and work less. Visit www.trainerrevenuemultiplier.com today to schedule your free business accelerator session. If you're serious about taking your business to the next level, schedule your call today.
I think for me, it's actually more mental than physical because I don't really hit like body parts that close to each other. So for the most part, like I'm really not that sore. It's just mentally, I know that I need a break. And because if you're training the right way, um, it's also mentally exhausting because you're always constantly trying to like make sure you're contracting right and all of that. So it's also exhausting on your mental health as well when you're actually training right. So that's absolutely right.
Yeah. So are you currently, or have you ever worked with a coach, like a bodybuilding or just a trainer in general?
So I've only worked with bodybuilding coaches. I've had one in my past for my first ever like trying to build a bikini physique programming, and I had her for 2 years, and then now I'm working with a different coach. We've been together for 2 years too, and she's been the one that's been peaking me for shows. Um, and this year we're trying to work on hopefully going to the national stage and getting like a top two for the pro card. So we'll see how this goes. Yeah.
So working with someone, how has that been like?
My current coach actually found her from like watching her YouTube videos and all of that. So I followed her for quite a long time, and I know that like a lot of her training style and the way she eats, and like she posts a lot of like what I eat in a day and like that for her show preparations. So that honestly like really got me into thinking like, oh, like maybe if she coaches, like I'll actually have her because I mean, the food aspect doesn't look that bad, and it actually looks like food that I would enjoy and I wouldn't be complaining about. So that's part of the reason why I got her in the first place. But when I did get my program, honestly, it was I would be like, it's a good programming, but I would be obviously I would have doubts. I would be like, oh, like shouldn't I hit glutes a little more? Or I feel like there's only one shoulder day, but like my shoulders are probably the weakest part of my body. Maybe I need more. Um, so that yes, that's kind of just trust over time. At first I was like, there's no way I'm going to get what I have to get, like enough shoulder size or whatever, to really do well at a show. But I just stuck to her plan. Um, Obviously it's also about communicating. I did ask her, I was like, do you think I should hit like a little more glutes, like just a little bit of touch-ups? And she explained it to me. She's like, I don't know if you can recover on time. Like if you're doing so much of glutes, it's better if you just hit glutes on this one day and just go all in, and then we can throw in something extra like towards the end of the week or something. Um, So I think it's also about communicating. Like if you do have something that you want to question her about, or like when you're given an instruction and you're like, "Oh, I like my old way more." Um, I thought of that too, and you just have to communicate that, and like just make sure whoever you're asking to train you or coach you, like they know what they're doing, and you know especially with trainers nowadays, like make sure they actually know how to train properly. Um, and once you know that, you can really just go all in, and I think follow their plan, see how it works like in a month, see if you are making good improvements, and if not, you can communicate with them. But I don't think it's a smart thing to just you know, do something behind their back and just like throw in extra workouts or something like that, then that's not going to benefit you or your coach. But just communicating that if there's something that you think is like wrong or something you have in mind that's better, like it's always nice to communicate, and maybe she forgot about it or something. So it's it's nice to talk about it, I think.
Yeah, having that communication And also like the feeling that you can communicate is really important. And
Yeah, at the end of the day, like they do have experience, but they're also, especially if they're competing as well, like they're also fatigued, like they're also like prepping or like dieting. So they might not, they're also open to learning. So just make sure you're hiring someone that is open to learning and, you know, they'll educate you and it goes both ways. It's very normal to have those soft doubts and like no coach would be good enough to be like come to you and you not thinking that something is wrong on the plan. Um, but I think it like ultimately it's just try it out, try to go all in, and then, if by 1 month you're not liking what you're seeing, then maybe bring that up and actually discuss about it. But um it's yeah, the trust is absolutely key when it comes to this.
what has been, do you think, your biggest struggle? Like what's the area that you feel like maybe even was your bigger struggle kind of like early on that you've I don't want to say mastered, but just gotten a lot better at?
I think that would probably be like gut health. Um, because I think like when I first started, I was just like, obviously I was already like digging deep into like macronutrients and stuff like that, but I wasn't really thinking about how I should plan it throughout the day. I would honestly just go by however I'm feeling. So maybe I would eat like very little throughout the day and then um assign all of my food towards like the end of the day because that's when I actually feel hungry. Um, but I think over this journey, like the classic way is to have like 5 meals, or even more if you have more food. Um, but by doing this, like at first I really didn't like it because obviously like I had to go to school and stuff like that, and I didn't want to be like eating all the time. But I think that actually really helps me with my gut health because back then when I would be forcing all this food at the end of the day, I would feel like almost like bloated and like some kind of pain in my stomach because it wasn't used to getting all this food like all at once. And I think like some people, they do intermittent fasting or whatever it is. And some people can actually handle that. Like some people can afford to have one meal a day and actually not feel anything in their digestion. But for me, I just think that because of all of my past journey with food, I think that it just got really sensitive with my digestion and my gut health that I really had to actually learn how to retrain it and actually treat it correctly. And so the spacing out the food and just like having smaller meals throughout the day, that really helped with me not feeling that pain. Um, and also retraining my body to actually digest the food and use the food because like having to train, like do cardio in the morning, go to classes and then train again, that's a lot of energy and even just staying up in a class, like you need that energy. And again, some people can actually do fasting throughout the day, but for me, that's not something that I think I could handle because I need that. Like I need those nutrients to keep me awake and like to actually keep me functional throughout the day. So I think that really taught me how to manipulate my food and also just time it so that, I'm not groggy throughout the day or I can really be energetic in the times that I have to be. So, um, that really taught me a lot. And then again, like the digestion thing, I think now I'm at the point where I don't like after a meal, I don't feel like I'm like really, really bloated, or I don't think that like my body really changes after a meal, besides like maybe I'll get a little more carbs in my muscles or something. But I really don't think that I'm so sensitive in, my stomach that I feel discomfort or anything like that. But it's been a long time, and also um takes time to just play around with like, getting different enzymes and probiotics to really train yourself.
It's just really cool that it can be this kind of lifelong journey.
Yeah, exactly. And I think,
This podcast is sponsored by Smoking Gun Coffee, a veteran owned coffee company that strives to give back to those in need. Don't forget to use code TWR10 for a 10% discount at checkout.
no matter how busy you are, you try to fit in and you don't let that part of your life stop. So I think it's totally a personal decision, but I think every athlete knows that, like, it doesn't matter what, like, life happens and it doesn't matter what it is. They'll try to make it happen, and it always ends up working because that's their focus. Like, that's part of their goal.
So, did you say you're currently in a prep?
Yes.
How's that prep going?
So it's actually going pretty well. I am like 8 weeks out now, and I was actually prepping throughout the summer, and I was originally going to do a show, but we decided to change it to the December show. So I'm in a really good place to prep again, and because I'm pretty much like halfway through the prep, and I'm starting it literally like 2 days ago, so I'm at a really good place where it's like I'm already decently lean, and now I just need to get to like those final details where I just want to almost be like translucent and just be as lean as possible so that, when it's time, I can actually um make sure that I can manipulate my food and, play around with different things and just not have to worry about that because um, for me, my problem was always like just coming in tight enough. So, just like actually making sure my waist is very, very tight, and like more details in my legs and just that. I think this time I'm in a really good place to actually, like my food is not super, super low. Um, I could still like play with that. And my cardio is not extremely high. It's not like an hour or above. So I can really like actually play around with those numbers with my coach, and then we'll see how my body responds. But so far, body is really responsive. So I'm excited.
So, as you get deeper into prep, do you have any things that you do to kind of help get you over the hump of that challenge? You know, the mental kind of fog, if you will, and just all the things that go along with prep. Do you add anything on that really helps you kind of take care of some of that, or just make yourself feel better?
Yeah, so I've only actually recently started doing this, and that's getting body work done. I've heard like so many good things about it, but just being in New York City, it's a little harder to find the right person to do it. So it took me some time to eventually find the right place to do it. But it's not just obviously it's more so of a physical therapy. Um, but for me mentally, it also like reminded me of how much I need to actually just rest and recover. And especially on prep, it's very easy to just have like low quality sleep, just because you're hungry or you're always like waking up early to do things. Um, so that actually really kind of helps me sleep better. Um, and just that alone, I think it helps so much with recovery, and then along with the way it works, like the way they, go in deep tissue and all of that, that really helps with like actually making sure your recovery is on point. So, that's only something that I recently started doing, but even just this time around, I can see that like my check-ins are so much better. And just even like on prep, like I feel like my water weight has been so much more, controlled, and it's like now I see that it's kind of a mind and body thing. It goes hand in hand. For me nowadays, I have gotten a lot better with, the photo thing that you mentioned. I'm doing it very carefully and also in a way that's not, not like before when it was like a toxic thing, but now I look at it more as like I kind of really just look at myself as like a little like sample, like you said, like I'm like an experiment. So now I would, I would reflect at my check-in maybe like from half a year ago, and I'm like to myself, I'm like, yes, like I've improved a lot more, and I could still do this and that, but I'm still happy that I'm here now because I've improved so much from half a year ago. So that's like the switch that I really made to get off of that like toxic relationship with like my body and things like that. Um, Now I'm speaking to myself like I've came a long way and I'm really proud of my physique at the moment. And we could still perfect it, but I'm really happy with where we are. We just need to work on this and that, but I'm very happy. Um, so that's kind of how I tell and train myself and just like reflect. Um, and I tried journaling. It's kind of I think it's like everybody has their own take on it. For me, I think it's a little um I just have more clarity from just like thinking and just like kind of just like silently just like reflecting. I think that's enough for me. So I don't really go into the journaling thing, but I think it depends on if you really enjoy like writing on in physical form, like someone could really benefit from that. But yeah, that's how I've been training my mental health at the moment.
You're obviously still very young in your bodybuilding career. Have you thought at all about like the plan as far as like, because some people are like, I don't want to do this forever. If if I'm in this for 5 more years, we'll see what happens, or maybe it's 10 years or whatever. But like, have you thought like, okay, I want to have achieved these certain things in this amount of time, and then at that point, I'll most likely be done with it, or what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so for me, I think like in the short term, kind of like as a short-term goal, obviously my goal is to just get my pro card at a young age and then do well at a pro level show because, just getting a pro card doesn't mean that you're like good as a pro athlete. So I want to be like at a young age, like competitive enough in a pro show. And then I do want to like eventually this would be like I feel like a couple years time would be more realistic, but hopefully get an Olympia qualification. But I think in the very, very long run, I think I can actually see myself doing this for, maybe until I'm 30 or even more. I just think that especially for the top level girls, I think a lot of them actually do well when they actually reach their 30s. It's just I think it's a lot about muscle maturity. Um, you see this year and like probably in the top 10, all of these girls are like, you know, almost in their 30s. There's only like a couple of girls that are like younger. And those are like the genetically gifted girls. They're the ones that, um, that I aspire to be like, but in the long run, like I think it's supposed to be a sport that has a long life. So I don't, I whatever happens, like my time will come, but I'm not thinking about like, you know, I don't really have like a time constraint on like, oh, I need to get to the Olympia at this year. But I think I can see myself doing this for a while. And obviously there would have to be, times and phases in between where you have to take a break, take a deload, or actually go on a vacation and not actually be sticking to your meal plan, like that's totally fine. But I think with those like snuck in between for me, I think that's enough to really just still be able to enjoy whatever I'm doing. I don't think it gets in the way, or I don't think it's like I can actually see it being incorporated to my lifestyle. So.
You mentioned some of those athletes. Do you have any specific athletes that you look up to?
I mean, I don't really have any like specific athletes that I have in mind. Um, Obviously like I keep up with like most of the Olympians. Um, I really like Issa, like she's always been the one that stood out to me because just her shape and like her frame is it's just different from everybody. I really like her. But I think just routine wise, I think that's something that is the one thing that is not genetic. So I think that's something that's like a non-negotiable. Like you need to put in the effort to actually make sure, you're the best version of that. And just like make sure everything's as natural as possible. And at the same time, like it's a very fine line because you also need to make sure you're not like trying to copy whoever. It's nice to be inspired by someone, but at the end of the day is your routine, so you're not just making sure you're not like copying whoever. And even like comparing like the Olympians with a regular national show, like obviously the routines are going to be different because it's like a different timing, and you get less stage time and stuff like that. So yeah, I think posing to me, I really like just watching like all of the athletes, and there's some that I like better and some that I don't, but I think it's a good way to just like make sure like what you're doing, and also just add in your personal touch to it is very important. There's no point in like copying their routines either because, they're on a different stage. They have a totally different structure than you. Um, so that's another thing, just like actually making sure your posing is tailored to you and just you.
Looking forward into the next, 8 weeks. Best of luck. It was great getting to chat with you and kind
Thank
of learn a
you.
little bit about, your journey and, where you started and what your goals are. And best of luck in obviously the 8 weeks, but also moving forward. I look forward to kind of following along with the progression of your bodybuilding career.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me, and I'm very excited to see where this takes me.
If you're tired of searching for a coach or trainer, somebody who knows what they're talking about and has experience, make sure you go check out the new Coach's Corner on weightroompodcast.com. You can find quality, qualified coaches to help you achieve your goals, whether that's in bodybuilding or just general fitness. Stop wasting time and start achieving your goals today. The link to the Coach's Corner is down in the description below.